Welcome to the Yerba Power Podcast. My name is Devin. I'm the host of this podcast, and I am so glad you are listening and joining us today. I want to give a little bit of a helper to the newbies out there, or those that maybe are trying to figure out the ideal water temperature for brewing yerba mate the traditional way. So I saw this posted in one of the Facebook groups of someone that was new, I think in Australia, that was learning about yerba mate and then kind of asked about the water, how hot it should be, and how they should brew it. So I thought this would be helpful to some other people as well that might be curious as to what is the ideal water temperature. So I'll debunk one of the main problems or myths, let's say, give you my opinion on ideal water temperature, and also what all people in yerba mate community can agree on. So let me start with debunking the very first thing that you need to know. First of all, one key to preparing mate the traditional way is water temperature. And one thing that we can all agree on, and that is true, is the water should not boil. In other words, the water should not be that hot. You don't want to have boiling water to prepare your yerba mate. Now, you can boil the water and let it cool if you're worried about maybe boiling off any kind of pesticides or any problems or whatever the water might be issue quality there. That's different. However, the water temperature for when you're brewing your yerba mate, when you're drinking it, should never be boiling. That's way too hot. And with that being said, that's traditional way, correct? So people have different opinions on this, myself included, but there is one agreed upon answer, which I'll get into. And I'll follow up with this episode about choosing a thermos and why that's important next. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast once that releases. So going into my personal opinion, and then I'll get to what others will agree on in the community. So number one is that it shouldn't be boiling. So now the question is, well, what temperature should it be? I personally have my water around 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. I find personally that's a good temperature for me because I don't like it that hot. I want to be able to enjoy it. If it's too hot, it'll burn your mouth and it's just not enjoyable to drink. And any lower than 130, it's just too cold. Unless you're doing tereré. And so if you're doing it cold on purpose, which we can talk about in another episode. But now we're talking about hot water. So don't let me sidetrack you. So I have drank mate with other people that have it hotter. And so personally, I just don't enjoy it. However, there are some yerbas that I have noticed that steep better at a hotter temperature. And how I measure my water temperature is I just have a simple thermometer. It's like a meat thermometer. So it shows the dial on the face where I can see the temperature, and just like a little metal stick that you would normally put in, the meat to measure the temperature. But I don't use it for meat. I just use it for the water temperature. So don't worry about sanitary. I just put that in my electric kettle, since my electric kettle doesn't have an actual temperature gauge on it, but I just measure the temperature with that little thermometer until it gets around 140, and then I pour it in my thermos. And you don't need a water kettle, to heat the water. It just makes it convenient for me. You can get one at a store or Amazon. Some come with preset temperature controls, so you won't even need a thermometer like I use. But that's just the way I do it because, well, I've had the water kettle for a couple years now, and, still works. So, plus, when I do travel, and I don't have the water kettle with me, if I'm just boiling water or heating up water on a stove or something, then I can use the thermometer to measure the temperature, wherever I go. I've learned a couple other tricks as far as, guessing when I don't have the thermometer. So heating up water in a microwave or pouring it through a coffee machine, things like that, which would be another interesting episode to do later. So now, as far as the one answer we can all agree on is that the water should not be boiling hot, and should, in fact, never be above 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 82 degrees Celsius. So, recap what we've learned so far. 1, it shouldn't be boiling. 2, personally, I like about 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. And then the thing that the whole community can agree on is that it shouldn't be above 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And generally speaking, that's where a lot of people will say somewhere around there, 160 to 180. But it should never go above 180. Okay, good. Now, why you don't want to have it that hot? There's this term saying burn the leaves so they don't actually catch on fire. It's not that what that means. Burning the leaves is a way that it steeps, and when you are pouring the hot water, it is basically drawing out the nutrients, ingredients, all the things that are in those yerba mate leaves is what you are drinking as a infusion of that water. So if you're burning it, meaning that it basically keeps it from steeping the next time. It's like it keeps it from processing or infusing, because you basically just essentially wasted it all in one pour because the water was too hot. I'll have to look into more like science to explain what I'm trying to say, because I guess what I'm trying to get across is that too hot is not only because it's not burning your mouth and all that stuff, but that it will basically take away the whole enjoyable experience, because it'll be watered down the next time you pour, because it won't infuse correctly. Does that make sense? So it'll also, give it kind of a harsh bitterness, and it ruins the taste and longevity of the yerba. Does that make sense? I think that's better said. And most teas have a certain temperature point for steeping, and yerba mate is no different in that regard. So in summary, having correct water temperature can change the taste and experience of drinking yerba mate. My, personal preferences may vary as an ideal temperature. Mine is around 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. However, never above 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 82 degrees Celsius. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for the next episode about choosing a thermos, and maybe I'll go into more some of the science about different yerbas and what have gone better with different temperatures. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll put everything in the show notes below, and check it out on Instagram if you want to find out more questions. Feel free to ask me anything. Thanks.